On my 75th birthday, I learned that comfort isn't the same as dignity. It took me 9 months, one very good friend, and a notebook full of carefully documented dates to figure that out. But let me start where it really began the morning my son brought his laptop instead of flowers. My house had been quiet for 3 years. That's how long it had been since Henry passed. People kept telling me the silence would get easier, that I'd adjust. But they were wrong. The silence didn't get easier, I just got better at pretending it didn't bother me. I filled my days with small rituals. Watering my plants at 7. Toast and tea at 8. The library on Tuesdays. It was a life measured in routines, safe and predictable. Until David started visiting more often. At first, I thought it was sweet. Then I realized he was checking on me. Each visit came with gentle suggestions. Motion sensor lights. A medical alert button. Eventually, the big one: what if I considered a senior living community? Just to look, he said. Just to see what's out there. The brochure was beautiful. I'll give them that. Meadowbrook Senior Living looked like a resort hotel dropped into the suburbs. Polished marble lobby, restaurant-style dining, yoga studios, book clubs, even a small greenhouse. David's laptop screen glowed with promises: 24-hour staffing, wellness programs, transportation to appointments, social activities. "Mom, you'd have friends," he said, his eyes tired but earnest. "You'd be safe. We'd have peace of mind." That phrase, peace of mind. It wasn't about my peace. It was about his. But I couldn't say that out loud, not with my granddaughter Kayla sitting there, coloring a picture of our house with a big red heart on the roof. She looked up at me with those 7-year-old eyes and asked, "Will you be happy there, Grandma?" I wanted to say I was happy right here. But was I? Or was I just familiar with the loneliness? "Maybe, sweetheart," I told her. "Maybe I will." The tour happened on a Tuesday. Sunny, warm, the kind of day that makes everything look better than it is. The director, a woman in her 50s with a practiced smile, walked us through like we were visiting a 5-star hotel. The lobby had fresh flowers, real ones, I checked. The dining room had white tablecloths and a menu board listing 3 entree options. The library was smaller than I'd hoped, but the books looked recent. We passed residents in the common areas. Some were playing cards, laughing. Others sat reading or doing puzzles. One woman in a floral blouse waved at us like we were old friends. It all looked so possible. "You'll have independence and peace of mind," the director said, echoing David's words. I noticed she used that phrase a lot. Peace of mind. As if peace were something you could purchase with a monthly fee. I signed the papers 3 weeks later. David helped me pack. Kayla cried a little, which made me cry, which made David promise we'd have Sunday dinners every week. I watered my plants one last time, wondering which ones would survive the move to a smaller windowsill. The first month at Meadowbrook felt like an extended hotel stay. My apartment was clean, compact, and came with furniture I hadn't chosen. I unpacked my books, arranged my few plants on the windowsill, and tried to make it feel like home. The walls were beige. Henry would have hated beige. But I met June on my second day, and that changed everything. She knocked on my door holding a plate of cookies, homemade, not from the dining hall. "Welcome wagon," she said with a grin. Unofficial. The official one got cancelled. Budget cuts. June was 76, a retired nurse with salt and pepper hair and the kind of humor that comes from seeing too much to take anything too seriously. She'd been at Meadowbrook for 2 years and knew exactly what I was going through. "Give it 2 weeks," she told me over coffee in my little kitchen. "That's how long the honeymoon lasts. Then you start noticing things." She was right. At first, everything felt manageable. I joined the morning yoga class. My joints creaked, but so did everyone else's, and we laughed about it. I signed up for the book club and discovered 2 other women who loved mysteries as much as I did. The food was decent, the staff was friendly, and I started to think maybe this would work after all. June and I fell into an easy friendship. We'd walk the grounds together in the mornings, her pointing out which flowering bushes were real and which were plastic. We'd eat lunch together, comparing notes on which entrees were worth the calories. She had this way of seeing through things, of naming what everyone else was too polite to mention. "Notice how they always staff the lobby during tour hours," she'd say. "Watch. Come back at 8 p.m. Completely different picture. I started noticing. Once you start looking, you can't stop. The yoga class got cancelled twice in 1 week. No explanation, just a note on the door. The book club kept getting moved to smaller rooms because, they said, other programs needed the space. But I never saw those other programs happening. The dining room started running out of the first entree choice by 6 p.m., which meant latecomers got whatever was left. The staff smiled less. They moved faster, more efficiently, like they were checking boxes instead of checking in. The woman in the floral blouse, her name was Dorothy, mentioned that her daughter had complained about the activities calendar being so thin. "They told her it's because we're not interested," Dorothy said, her voice small. "But that's not true. We asked for a gardening club for months." I remembered the greenhouse from the tour. I walked over there one afternoon. It was locked. Through the dusty glass, I could see empty tables and a few dead plants in the corner. June wasn't surprised when I told her. "They show you the dream," she said. "Then they give you the discount version and hope you're too tired to complain." But the real turning point came on a Thursday night in October. I couldn't sleep. My arthritis acts up when the weather changes, so I was sitting in my little living room, reading. Around 11:30, I heard raised voices in the hallway. I opened my door a crack. It was Mr. Green from down the hall, the quiet man who always nodded hello. He was clutching his chest, his face pale and drawn. His wife was beside him, panicked, trying to get someone's attention. A staff member I didn't recognize was talking on a phone, looking frustrated. "The night nurse called in sick," she was saying. "I'm not qualified to make that assessment. You need to call 911 yourself." Mr. Green's wife was crying now. "We pay for 24-hour medical staff. That's what they promised us." I didn't think. I just moved. I'd taken a CPR class years ago for the library, and I remembered enough to help Mr. Green sit down, to help his wife call the ambulance, to stay with them until it arrived. The whole time, that staff member just stood there, helpless and defensive. The paramedics said he'd had a mild heart attack. He recovered, thank God. But that night changed something in me. We pay for peace of mind, I kept thinking. We got a voicemail. The next morning, I ran into June in the dining hall. She took one look at my face and said, "Tell me." So I did. And when I finished, she didn't look surprised. She looked resigned. "Last month," she said quietly, "Mrs. Chen fell in the bathroom at 2 a.m. It took 40 minutes for someone to respond to her call button. 40 minutes, Maggie. She could have bled out. Why didn't she complain?" June gave me a sad smile. "Because she's 81 and afraid they'll kick her out if she's too much trouble. Because her kids live 3 states away. Because this is supposed to be the good option." That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I started taking notes. Real notes, the kind I used to take when I was cataloging books at the library. Dates, times, incidents, patterns. I wrote down every cancelled program, every staffing shortage, every lukewarm meal, every unanswered call button. June saw my notebook and raised an eyebrow. "What are you doing?" "I'm not sure yet," I told her. "But I'm not going to forget." 2 days later, I was walking past the staff break room when I heard voices. The door was slightly ajar. I should have kept walking. But I heard my own name, and I stopped. Mrs. Hart complained about the yoga class again, one voice said. Young, impatient. Another voice laughed. They always complain at first. Give it a month. They forget, or they get tired of fighting. Half of them can't remember what they had for breakfast. Just smile and nod. I stood there in that hallway, my heart pounding, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not sadness. Not resignation. Anger. Clean, clarifying anger. I am not a number on an invoice. I am not someone who will forget. I didn't get smaller with age, I got clearer. That night, I called June. We need to talk to people, I said. Quietly, carefully. But we need to know we're not alone. We're not alone, June said. Trust me, everyone feels it. They're just scared to say it out loud. So we started having coffee dates. Casual conversations in the dining hall. Walks in the garden. And slowly, carefully, people started talking. Dorothy told us about the promised transportation service that never seemed to be available. Mr. Green, recovered now, talked about the night medical staff being perpetually short-handed. Mrs. Chen showed us her bruises from the fall and admitted she'd been too afraid to report it. We weren't organizing a rebellion. We were just listening. But listening, I was learning, is how you build something stronger than anger. You build proof. I filled 3 notebooks. June took photos: the locked greenhouse, the dirty hallways at night, the posted schedules beside the actual empty rooms. We documented everything with the methodical patience of people who'd spent lifetimes keeping track of important details. What are we going to do with all this? June asked one evening. I don't know yet, I admitted. But when we figure it out, we'll be ready. The answer came from an unexpected place. Kayla, during one of her visits, was helping me water my plants when she asked, Grandma, why don't you have your pretty dishes here? There's not enough room, sweetheart. But you said this place was supposed to make you happy. Don't your pretty dishes make you happy? Out of the mouths of children. She was right. I'd made myself smaller to fit into someone else's idea of what I needed. I'd been so focused on being easy, on not being a burden, that I'd forgotten to ask what I actually wanted. That night, I called David. Not for permission. For conversation. I need to talk to you about Meadowbrook, I said. There was a pause. Then, is everything okay, Mom? No, I said. And for the first time in months, I told him the truth. All of it. The cancelled programs, the staffing shortages, Mr. Green's heart attack, the overheard conversation. I didn't cry. I didn't apologize. I just laid out the facts, the way I used to present a library budget. David was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because you were so relieved when I moved in. Because I thought maybe I was being difficult. Because I'm your mother, and I didn't want to be another problem you had to solve. Mom. His voice cracked a little. You're not a problem. You're my mother. Then listen to me like I'm your mother. Not like I'm a checklist item. We talked for over an hour. Really talked, the way we hadn't since he was young, and still asked me questions about everything. He apologized. I apologized. And then we started making a plan. June and I requested a meeting with the director. We dressed nicely, carried our notebooks, and walked into that office like we were negotiating a library contract. Which, in a way, we were a contract for dignity. The director started with her professional smile. Ladies, how can I help you today? I opened my notebook. We're here to discuss service gaps between what was promised and what's being delivered. We have documentation. Her smile flickered. I'm sure any concerns can be addressed. We've documented 43 program cancellations in 3 months, June said calmly. 6 medical staffing shortages, multiple maintenance delays, and several instances of dismissive communication from staff. I slid the notebook across the desk. We're not here to make trouble. We're here to be heard. What followed was an hour of careful conversation. The director was defensive at first, citing budget constraints and staffing challenges. But as we calmly, methodically presented our documentation, something shifted. She stopped defending and started listening. "I didn't know it was this bad," she said finally, and I actually believed her. She wasn't cruel. She was overwhelmed, caught between corporate promises and impossible budgets. "I'll take this to corporate. I'll push for changes." "That's good," I said. "But while you're pushing for changes, I need to make a choice for myself." "What kind of choice?" "I'm going to leave. My son and I are going to find another arrangement." She looked genuinely upset. "Mrs. Hart, please give us a chance to fix this." "I appreciate that," I told her. "And I hope you do fix it, for everyone who stays. But I've learned something these past months. Comfort that costs your voice isn't comfort. And I'm choosing to keep my voice." June decided to stay. "Someone needs to hold them accountable," she said with a grin. "And besides, I like being a pain in the neck. It keeps me young." The next few weeks were a blur of planning. David helped me look for apartments near his house, really helped, not just sent links. We found a small place with good light and room for my plants. Kayla helped me pack, wrapping each dish carefully and asking questions about where each one came from. "This is your pretty life coming back," she said, which made me cry in the best way. Moving day was bittersweet. I said goodbye to the people I'd come to know, promised to stay in touch with June, and walked out of Meadowbrook with my head high and my notebooks under my arm. My new apartment isn't fancy. The floors creak and the bathroom is tiny. But the kitchen window gets morning sun, and I can walk to David's house for Sunday dinner without scheduling it 3 weeks in advance. Kayla visits after school sometimes, and we water the plants together while she tells me about her day. But here's the thing I didn't expect. June called me a month after I moved out. "They're making changes," she said. "Small ones, but real. They hired more nurses. They reopened the greenhouse. And they're starting a residences council to give feedback." "Because of the notebooks?" "Because someone finally insisted they listen." "That was you, Maggie." I thought that would be the end of the story. But June had other ideas. She invited me to speak at the local senior center, to share what I'd learned. I almost said no. I'm not a public speaker. I'm a librarian. But then I thought about all the people sitting in places like Meadowbrook, keeping their complaints quiet, making themselves small. And I said yes. The room was smaller than I expected. Maybe 30 people, most of them my age or older. I brought one of my notebooks and stood at the front, feeling my hands shake a little. "I'm not here to tell you horror stories," I started. "I'm here to tell you that your voice still matters. That keeping track of details isn't paranoia, it's survival. That asking questions isn't being difficult, it's being responsible for your own life." I talked about the notebooks, about documentation, about the power of calm, factual conversation. I talked about knowing the difference between a place that shelters you and a place that silences you. When I finished, a woman in the back raised her hand. "What if we don't have anywhere else to go?" "Then you organize," I said. "You find one other person who feels the same way. You document. You present facts, not emotions. You remember that you survived this long because you're strong, not because you're easy." June, sitting in the front row, added, "And you make friends with the troublemakers. We're more fun anyway." The room laughed, and I felt something settle in my chest. This was right. This was what I was supposed to do with what I'd learned. I still go to that senior center once a month now. Sometimes I talk about advocacy. Sometimes we just have coffee and swap stories. June joins me when she can, her presence a reminder that friendship is its own form of activism. David and I are in a better place too. He doesn't try to solve me anymore. He asks questions. He listens. He shows up. Last week, he brought Kayla over unannounced just because it was a nice day and they wanted to see me. That's worth more than any premium living facility. My apartment is small, but it's mine. My dishes are on the shelves where I can see them. My plants line the windowsill, reaching toward the light. My notebooks sit on the table, a reminder that details matter, that facts are power, that being heard starts with refusing to be silent. Sometimes I stand in my little kitchen, morning sunlight warming my face, and I think about that tour of Meadowbrook. How shiny everything looked, how easy it seemed, how much I wanted to believe that someone else could take care of everything. But here's what I know now. Safety and dignity are both non-negotiable. A list of facts can be a bridge to empathy. And I didn't get smaller with age, I got clearer. I still hear the clock ticking on my wall, marking time the way it always has. But no, I'm not listening to it count down what I've lost. I'm listening to it measure what I've chosen. And that makes all the difference. If you're listening to this and you're thinking about your own choices, whether it's where to live, how to speak up, or when to say enough, I want you to know something. Your voice matters. Your experience matters. Your need for both comfort and dignity isn't asking too much. It's asking for exactly what you deserve. Don't make yourself small to fit into someone else's idea of easy. Don't stay quiet because speaking up feels hard. And don't ever believe that age has taken away your right to be heard. Find your people, keep your notes, trust your clarity, and choose the life that lets you be whole, not just comfortable. That's how you keep time on your own terms. That's how you stay yourself.